be a pretty good venue, I guess, and that's only the beginning. So that's tomorrow. People will be able to go and trade ITR finally.
So the ITR, that is the Intercoin Investor Token, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and this is... Can you tell us a little bit about what that is in relation to the whole Intercoin project? Because Intercoin's,
Sure.
The idea behind Intercoin is to help companies and organizations launch their own token, right? That's kind of the basics.
Yeah, like we've spoken to so many organizations and people, when they understand, wait a moment, I can have my own coin, and my previous company made your own app. So altogether, you can have your own app, your own coin, your own community. They start to see the reason why they'd want to have that. Like one reason is if you had a coin, let's say for Free Talk Live or something like that, you'd be able to reward people for bringing other people to watch, or maybe you could reward them for listening to the show. That's just some examples of like helping to reward the kind of behavior you would like to see that might spread the ideas of liberty to others. And you reward them with a coin that may or may not be worth something in the future. That's just an example.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Intercoin is launching on an exchange. If you want, hang on, Greg. We'll continue here in a moment. We'll talk about why this, it's a big deal.
I think a Free Talk Live coin sounds cool.
Yeah, people have talked about that for a long time, and I've been pretty reticent to do it. Of course, now I'm prohibited from doing anything with that idea. But the number here is 603-283-6160. You could do it, Bonnie, if you wanted to. I just couldn't instruct you to. There's more coming up here in a moment. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correa, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com. Free Talk Live.
And I still swore to the Commander-in-Chief.
What oath is higher to you?
I'm not going to stand up and go AWOL because, I don't believe...
Well, wait, nobody said you had to go AWOL. Did you swear two oaths, one to the Commander-in-Chief and then one to the Constitution?
You swear one to the Constitution as your Commander-in-Chief as your executive order.
Which part of the oath is the priority? Is it upholding the Constitution? Well, so whatever the Commander-in-Chief says is what goes.
That sounds like a cult of personality to me.
It doesn't matter if it's unconstitutional.
This is a nation of laws, supposedly, I was told, and since the Constitution's the highest law in the land, if the Commander-in-Chief violates that piece of paper, then you should, as a person who swore an oath to that Constitution, go in there and arrest him.
Okay, well, you're making sense.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live. The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to join us, you can do that. And you can bring up anything you want. Coming up, are people more likely to be pessimistic? That is a story that both you and I actually selected, Arya, on our own volition.
Well, we both tend to be optimistic, so when we see something like that, it catches our attention.
Yep, that's absolutely true. So we can talk about that, plus Bonnie's story about the Pope. Since we just were talking about him a moment ago with Biden meeting the Pope, and then allegedly, some people say, letting a number 2 go in his pants.
I realized why I didn't hear about any of this, and it's because it was Halloween, so my primary access to memes is Facebook, so people were just posting pictures of Halloween costumes and Halloween parties and stuff. All of my friends missed this important stuff of President Poopy Pants. Really?
We'll continue here, and of course your calls and thoughts are welcome. Also, Greg is on the line with us from intercoin.org. And Greg, you're announcing the big news starting, is there a specific time tomorrow when this new exchange, or not, I guess not new exchange, but this exchange that is newly announcing that Intercoin's investor token will be available for trading, which is, by the way, the exchange is X Markets, exmarkets.com. They're going to feature this. Do you have like a start time?
Well, I think the listing, as I've been told that listings say they're going to open at a certain point, but sometimes it takes a couple hours longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, anytime that tomorrow you want to pop on over to exmarkets.com, you could create an account. It costs you nothing. Pretty much don't have to put up, I don't think, any information, although I don't know exactly how they run it. And then what happened is that they are going to open a trading pair, actually 3 trading pairs. ITR is going to be trading against USDT, which is the Tether. It's going to be trading against BTC, Bitcoin, and ETH, Ethereum.
Nice.
So
Okay.
whatever you've got,
Options.
go pop
That's
on
nice.
there. And yep, that's
And-
one way to get Intercoin.
And actually,
Go ahead,
Greg,
Bonnie.
I signed up with EX Markets a couple days ago, and yeah, they didn't ask me anything.
I was pretty amazed that there was not even any sort of hoops whatsoever besides, I think it was email is what they wanted you?
Yeah.
Well, if they don't accept fiat currency, I think they have a way of getting around all of that KYC stuff, right?
Maybe, but still, some of them, want to do KYC, and
Sure.
these guys
You
don't care.
You could withdraw like 100 Bitcoins a day.
Yeah, so there's a huge level of withdrawal that, like, if you had that many Bitcoins, you could do that with X Markets without any know your customer process. So that's pretty cool.
Also, other exchanges you all might want to look at, not for Intercoin, but in general. KuCoin has no KYC. Poloniex has
I've
no
used
KYC.
KuCoin in the past. Obviously, I can't, use them now.
Because of bail restrictions.
Right, but they were okay, but they had cash out minimums where if you wanted to move like 0.01 Ethereum or whatever, they wouldn't let you. You had to buy an additional 0.03 Ethereum or whatever before they would actually let you withdraw it.
Gotcha. What else, Greg?
Well, yeah. So basically, Intercoin, you started asking, what is this Intercoin ecosystem? And I kind of wanted to take a step back and explain why we started the project and why we have two separate tokens, the Intercoin Investor Token and then the actual Intercoin, which will be launching hopefully next year. So we kind of started all this, as you know, because crypto's been around for a long time. You know, it's been around for 10 years, and we still think that it's kind of an early technology because if you look around, people aren't actually using it in everyday life. You know, you go to a restaurant, you're not paying with crypto.
Well, unless you live in Keene, New Hampshire. I mean, what you're saying is true in most places. We're the exception to that rule. We live here in crypto Mecca, where literally today another restaurateur in town just informed me, or bar owner informed me that she has installed a crypto wallet. So we may be adding another bar to our roster.
That's good because we lost one.
Yeah. Well, it moved to a different location, but either way, we've got that here, Greg. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just wanted to point out that's not true everywhere. But go ahead.
Not true everywhere. But even let's take the Mecca, the center of it, because I've been to Keene and I've visited you guys. And okay, so what happened was we go to a restaurant, and that's an option. You can use it among other options, but then how are you paying? Are you paying on-chain on layer one, meaning are you using Bitcoin specifically, or are you
no, it's most people pay with Bitcoin Cash or Dash. Those are the number one and number two most used. So it is on-chain, layer one, the original cryptocurrencies, no silly Lightning Network nonsense. Just straight up crypto payments.
I suspect the only businesses in town that accept cryptocurrency that are actually getting Bitcoin is going to be like Wilder Automotive and the dentist.
Yeah, for
Mighty
sure.
Moose Marts.
The big
really for Bitcoin.
People actually pay Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Wow, that's got to be rare. I know that according to the AnyPay numbers, it's solidly Bitcoin Cash and Dash are number one and number two by like at least numbers, if not
Well,
volume.
the owner is a maximalist.
That's true. That's true.
He likes to say he's a rationalist.
But is he actually like someone coming in and buying like $1 candy bar and using Bitcoin?
No, I would definitely say it's way more BCH, but I've definitely also accepted
BCH is Bitcoin
BTC
Cash.
there.
Gotcha.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead, Greg. So you were saying?
So BCH correctly read the title of Satoshi's white paper, which is supposed to be a peer-to-peer cash system.
Right.
But what do you suppose would happen if not just Keene, New Hampshire, but everyone started using layer one Bitcoin transactions? You can only have about 10 per second or something like that.
I think BCH increased its block size to 32 megabytes, if I recall correctly. It's fairly large now by comparison, and maybe it's, I don't know what it is right offhand, but it's a lot more than the original 1 megabyte block size that the Bitcoin blockchain is stuck on, which restricts the original Bitcoin to like 7 transactions a second, I think, maximum. So in theory, what the Dash and Bitcoin Cash and those guys would do would be to just keep increasing the block size.
I think this is the one thing that Bitcoin SV did correctly, was just removing the block size limit entirely.
Did they remove it?
They did.
Okay.
It's determined now not by this artificial hard cap, but however many transactions a given miner can fit in a single block
in 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, without being beaten by someone else claiming those transactions. It's how many they can fit in there.
So let's look at that. The architecture of having everything on one blockchain, essentially what happens is that, so you have 32 times more space now, but that's still only about, 200 transactions per second. Now,
you're going to need a lot more to get up to Visa or MasterCard or PayPal processing levels. There's no doubt about that.
Right. And the thing is, it's because it does solve the double spend problem, but it solves it in a very brute force way. Blockchain basically says, hey, why don't we just take all transactions that just happened in the world in the last 10 minutes, put them in one place, and then see if there's any double spend, right? So that's clearly like a bottleneck. Basically, the miner has to be aware of every single transaction in the world. Otherwise, it doesn't get recorded on the chain.
So you're saying Intercoin is proposing to do something about this?
Absolutely.
All right, stand by, Greg. If you got time, we'll continue, because I'm curious to what that's going to be. Because right now, the Intercoin Investor Token is just another Ethereum token. So what has he got, cooked up, or what are they working on? The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And if you want to talk about crazy fees, the Ethereum network is way crazier than Bitcoin now. More coming up. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
2070 tak Bharat.
In a huge blow to environmentalists and the organisers of the COP26 Climate Change Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced India will not achieve net zero carbon emissions until the year 2070. It's the first time he's committed to a date for the country to achieve net zero, but his target is 20 years later than the goals favoured by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, hosting the event in Glasgow. He opened the conference urging strong and decisive leadership to deal with climate change.
Let us think about those billions of beady eyes that are watching us, and let us think of the billions more of the unborn whose anger will be all the greater if we fail.
The opening day also heard an apology from US President Joe Biden over the decision by his predecessor Donald Trump to withdraw from the Paris climate change accords.
I guess I shouldn't apologize, but I do apologize for the fact the United States, in the last administration, pulled out of the Paris Accords and put us sort of behind the eight ball.
In his main speech to the conference, President Biden said climate change is not just an environmental emergency, but also an economic opportunity to create new green jobs. Meanwhile, back on Capitol Hill today, a political earthquake for the Biden White House.
For the sake of the country, I urge the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Holding this bill hostage is not going to work.
Senator Joe Manchin, a right-leaning Democrat from West Virginia, says he is not yet ready to vote for President Biden's public spending proposals, a key demand of left-wing Democrats who say they won't back the president's infrastructure plans unless he does. It raises huge questions once again about when the president's key domestic legislative initiatives will be put to a vote on Capitol Hill. In other news, the number of people who have died as a result of COVID-19 has now topped 5 million globally. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Nick Harper reports.
As Johns Hopkins University's tracker only shows confirmed cases, including almost 750,000 people in the US, some experts predict the true number of deaths is even higher, perhaps double the 5 million figure. It comes as health officials warn of a potential surge, in particular in Europe and Southeast Asia, even as many countries relax travel restrictions.
The Queen has been seen taking a drive in the grounds of Windsor Castle. The 95-year-old took to the wheel of a Jaguar estate car just days after doctors advised her to spend 2 more weeks resting. The US Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments over a new abortion law in Texas that is the most restrictive in the United States. There are indications the justices will let abortion providers pursue their legal challenges. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And we are streaming video over on Odysee, as well as some other platforms. But those other platforms, you just can't trust them. They will likely cut us off at some point. Some of them already have. And so we never know when we're going to be on or off those other platforms. But Odysee seems pretty darn reliable. They were created by LBRY. Now, actually, since I think the last few days, they technically have, what's the word, a corporate, sell off, or they've schismed basically.
Really?
Library said, all right, well, Odyssey should be its own corporation, basically. I don't know what the best word for that is, but they're not mad at each other or anything like that. They just Library determined that Odyssey kind of has to do different things in order to be more competitive with YouTube, that the Library didn't really dovetail completely with Library's mission of total decentralization, because I guess Odyssey has, for their live streaming, there's a centralized streaming server that they're using.
Sure, and there are rules and stuff.
Yeah, and there's some rules there. And so they're using some centralized solutions. So I heard Jeremy Kaufman from Odyssey Library talking about on a recent interview that they do use centralized content servers on Odyssey to serve just the normal video playback as well. But if those servers fail, then they fall back to Library. So it still relies on Library as a back end, but not the main back end. So it sounds like they've taken some different directions with the Odyssey platform. So Library said, you know what, it'd be better off if we were separate and we can still work together, just not be the same company anymore, basically.
Sounds like a smart approach to it.
Yeah. So we're streaming over there, and that is the best platform on which you can watch Free Talk Live, and you can do that. Go to video.freetalklive.com. You'll find our Odyssey channel there. Be sure you hit the subscribe button or the follow button. I think they call it following on Odyssey. Head over there to video.freetalklive.com. As we go back to Greg, the founder of Intercoin over at intercoin.org, and you were just kind of explaining to us what some of the vision is for the future of Intercoin, and allowing people to create their own token. And you were discussing how right now one of the frustrating factors with some cryptocurrencies is once they grow too large, they can't handle the network transactions anymore. Like Bitcoin, it's full. Now they could increase the block size, but they haven't, and so Bitcoin tends to have some fairly high fees. Nowhere near as high as Ethereum these days, which is, we just checked the fee charts a moment ago, and it's like at least $27 on a median fee just to send some Ethereum. So it's completely out of the realm of the average person, and you can really basically you're only you can only afford it if you're a whale to be on the Ethereum network. So it seems to me pretty obvious that the future of Intercoin, if it is indeed something that people are going to be using, could not possibly be on the Ethereum network. Is that your plan? What you got cooking?
That's exactly right. Ethereum right now has just got the name recognition. Frankly, I don't know why anybody would want to be on the Ethereum network when there are so many other networks like Binance Smart Chain, like Polygon Matic, like Cardano, Solana, and others that also will support the EVM, and some already do. And they're pretty decentralized. I've looked at the way they are working with DPoS, and Ethereum's moving there too, but they're already there. So
what would your answer to that question be? If you don't see why anyone would want to be on the Ethereum network, why did you choose to put the Intercoin Investor Token on the Ethereum network?
Well, in our case, it was because the X Markets exchange, for example, and other exchanges simply do not interoperate sometimes with the other networks yet. We started Intercoin back in 2017,
right.
2018. Back then, there was nothing in town except maybe Tron.
And the fees on Ethereum at that time weren't crazy.
That's right. But you're going to see this on any blockchain, because it's not just about moving from one state to the next. It's also about storing the entire state. I'm not talking about the history, like when you have a full node and you're storing all the history. I'm talking about just storing the latest values. If you have to store every value, every balance, and every variable in every smart contract, that's a lot of storage. And I give the example of BitTorrent. If BitTorrent had to seed every single file on every single movie across the entire network, it would be unworkable. So you need sharding at the very least. You need to partition the network into parts that are independent.
That's S-H-A-R-D, not to be confused with what Joe Biden might have done earlier last week. Just want to clarify. Go ahead.
No, that's very good. Actually, gives a new meaning to, yes, we might actually poop our pants in the near future when we do sharding. So basically, okay.
But what does that mean for Intercoin? I mean, what is sharding in relation to? How does that help with the amount of, I mean, without getting too technical, because I feel like we may be coming close to crossing that line here. What does that mean for, the average person as far as making things work faster?
Sure, it's very simple. First of all, you all were just talking about Library and Odyssey. What do you like about it? The fact that it's decentralized, permissionless, and you can't take things down, right? So you have access to your stuff with your private key, and the network kind of just has a few little things that it enforces, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, look at what happens, though, at the architecture. So the architecture of Library allows you to have all these different videos. With Bitcoin and blockchain in general, it's a different architecture. So there's a bottleneck somewhere, and usually the bottleneck is the miner. The miner must be aware of every transaction in the world, otherwise it doesn't get into the block.
Mm-hmm.
So Intercoin simply notices that if you had community coins, let's say each city had its own coin, like New York City coin, Miami coin, which is, by the way, a thing now with city coins. So it's digital, yes, but also you don't have to look for a double spend between New York City coin and Miami coin. New York City coin can be in its own environment, and Miami coin can be in its own. And there was even a proposal in the days, you might remember, with colored coins on the Bitcoin network that was similar to that. In other words, never do the twain meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so if each coin can live on its own, say, virtual ledger, okay, then the double spend problem can be partitioned. You can have partitions corresponding to each coin, and each coin can have its own policies even. And then you have the intercoin network, which is the internet of coins. So in a sense, Intercoin is building the same thing that the internet did with local networks, where right now I could be on my network, you could be on your network, but we don't have to worry about it. There's all these applications that help us communicate without having to worry about the fact that we're all on different networks. It just seems to work.
So the idea is that, like, cities could have their coins, a town could, a town or whatever can have its own coin, a group, a corporation or something can have its own coin, and the more coins the better. So instead of this sort of Bitcoin maximalist view, which is Bitcoin can do it all, everyone will be using Bitcoin in the future, there's no need for any alternatives, you're saying, no, actually we need to have a ton of alternatives, but there needs to be a way for them to easily interact without like some sort of centralized architecture of an exchange. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Exactly. I would say this is what the libertarian ethos is all about. Everyone can have their own instead of one size fits all, and they can all interact together without having one group of humans in charge of everything, like Mark Zuckerberg or something like that. So that's why Library and Odyssey are so cool, and that's what we want with Intercoin. Yeah, we don't want one currency with one monetary policy of minting every 10 minutes or becoming more scarce, because then why would you buy anything? And so there are three disciplines. It's a multidisciplinary project. Technology, which I've been talking about, is just one thing. The other two are economics and regulations. So I think these are very interesting to talk about, because it's not just the regulators are evil or something like that.
But they are.
They certainly are.
Hang on, Greg. One more segment here. We got a little bit of time, and I appreciate you staying on here with us to try to dig in a little bit deeper as to what Intercoin is all about. It's coming a little more clear, I think, for me at this point. The number here, 603-283-6160. Maybe you've got a question for Greg. 603-283-6160. And we'll talk more about the Intercoin Investor Token coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The number here, if you want to join in, is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
We're on with the founder of Intercoin. He's Greg. The website is intercoin.org. And what I like about what Greg is saying here is basically he's embracing the whole crazy number of cryptos out there situation, which is the situation that we have, where there's literally like, I think according to CoinMarketCap, last time I looked, over 10,000, if not 11,000 cryptocurrencies. I think CoinGecko, these are two different websites that track these things.
Does that count like all the Ethereum tokens?
It does count a lot of the tokens. I mean, you can't count all of these things because it's just an impossibility. Oh, correction, 13,440 is currently listed over at CoinMarketCap. And that's, you're making a good point, Bonnie, is a lot of these things are Ethereum tokens, which is not the same thing as a cryptocurrency. A cryptocurrency is kind of like its own self-contained system. It needs to have usually miners or some sort of system to protect itself from getting hacked and continue on. Whereas a token doesn't require any of that. It just there's these different cryptos like Ethereum, and Greg mentioned a few others, Bitcoin Cash, I think, Solana, and some of these other ones, Tron, where if you want to, you can just go and create whatever token you want to in like 5 minutes.
And that's what he's proposing for Intercoin. And this line of conversation has got me curious, Greg. What mechanisms do you have in place to keep the Intercoin network from being as congested with just nonsense, useless tokens like has happened to the Ethereum network and these other networks?
That's a fantastic question. First of all, I just want to say, besides the technology, you also have the economic and the regulatory issues that I just wanted to explore while we have the time. But when it comes to the technology, I will say that at the very least, each coin would live on its own network. And you could theoretically split up Ethereum based on smart contract and say this smart contract is secured by these computers, and that smart contract is supported and secured by those computers.
So hold on, you're not talking about tokens then. You're saying that whatever coins are connected to Intercoin will be their own cryptocurrencies. They'll have their own network.
I want to say right now, because of the time that we have to talk, that right now Intercoin is built on the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, and it can run on much faster blockchains like Binance Smart Chain that just has $1 billion fund to support development there, also Polygon Matic, and even Cardano is going to have an Ethereum compatible layer. So in a way, it's like writing in Java. Everyone who creates their operating system wants the Java applications to run on their system. So we're application developers at the moment. We're not building the operating systems yet. Just like Google built, first a bunch of applications and only later created the Android operating system and their own phones. But it didn't do it from day one.
Well, they didn't create Android. They bought it out, if I remember correctly.
True. Yeah, but then they pretty much took it over.
By the way, Google is now investing in, I just read this story before the show, Digital Currency Group, which is the investor group that owns a piece of a lot of different crypto companies out there, including CoinDesk, which is one of the crypto news outlets, and also Blockstream, which is the company that's been pimping the Bitcoin Lightning so-called technology, and so now Google has a piece of that action.
Sounds like they're being evil.
Yeah, it does. So, all right, Greg, I don't know, did you get your question answered, Arya?
I don't think he was addressing my question. I think he was just going back to the points he wanted to make prior to
I'll try to address your question directly, Arya. Basically, communities are actual communities that may already exist, or they may be new projects. So take, for example, cities or universities or cruise ships or anything like that. They already exist. So having an existing economy that's monetized and becomes a smart economy is what Intercoin is all about. I haven't talked on this right now. I haven't talked much beyond cryptocurrency, but we also help with voting, decision-making, governance. We also help with the community making decisions. So it's really a libertarian project allowing the communities to have the tools to get their stuff done without waiting for central banks and without waiting for not NGOs to try to save them. You can airdrop money to Haiti after an earthquake because the Haiti community coin, you can just inject capital into it and you can see how the money is going to be spent statistically, as opposed to having absolutely no idea where your money's going.
Those cool.
Are just some examples. Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
That's a pretty cool idea. That reminds me of the Acoin city the Akon's trying to make. Maybe you could help him with that.
Absolutely. I had some people that suggested that. We actually, I don't want to mention right now until we have it signed, but certain things, if you go to intercoin.org, you'll see we have stateless people around the world that we're helping. There's a group of 3 million stateless people. There's a tribe in the Congo as well. There's another group that's about 3 million people. And we're also working on getting New York City coin, because I live in New York City, and it's dear to my heart to have a New York City coin that we can actually give a universal basic income in the coin, and so it can stay in the city. So that's another thing. If you have your own currency, your currency doesn't have to leave your community, and therefore people have to spend it on local labor and local restaurants and support their local economy, as opposed to if you gave a UBI in federal dollars, which is currently the case, it will leave the city because the city is only 1% or less of the whole world. So pretty much people go on eBay and they'll travel.
And the UBI in this case would be a voluntary choice because you would be choosing to support it by using the New York City coin, whereas you could use something else if you didn't want to support the UBI, which is, what the hell does that stand for again?
Universal Basic Income.
Universal Basic Income.
We actually started calling it the VBI because it's the voluntary basic income.
Oh, I like that. That's very nice. All right, so Greg, this is so for people that want to get the investor token, what does that mean for them? What does that mean for the future of Intercoin?
So Intercoin has two different tokens. The investor token is issued and sold by the company, and you can trade it, and you do buy it in order to receive potentially dividends from the sale of the autonomous token, the reserve currency Intercoin that will be launched in the future. Intercoin itself is going to be an autonomous token. It's not issued by the team. It's not sold into the market by the investors. Instead, the investors hold the ITR token. And the reason we did this is because there's a certain mismatch between the early backers of a project, the investors, and the public that uses it. Intercoin is supposed to be bought by communities. It's supposed to be used as reserve currency by communities. And it's also supposed to settle trade balances between communities. So we want the investors and speculators to stay out of it, and we actually would like them to get dividends from the sale of it. So they're interested in getting it sold, but they're not actually actively dumping the price or anything like that. Whereas most of these projects, including big ones like Telegram or Kick Messenger, had huge IPOs of $2 billion and $700 million respectively. They actually got stopped by the SEC because it's not just with the regulators. What are you doing? You're creating a coin that you're saying is going to go up in price, and it could go up in price, and that's why people buy it. But then at some point, you're trying to turn that into a stable cryptocurrency where it's stable in price. How is something going to go up in price but also remain the same in price? So we realized that we need two different tokens. The investors get one, and the autonomous token is the one that's supposed to have a reliable community reserve. That's basically what Intercoin is.
The investor token is the one that is in existence today, and that's the one that will be available on the X Markets exchange. That's exmarkets.com, starting sometime, would you say, in the next 24 hours or so, basically, unless something goes wrong?
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. So if you want to invest in the future of Intercoin, either because you think that this thing is going to go to the moon, or maybe because you think that because it might not, I don't know. But the other thing is, if you just want to invest in helping the world have a more libertarian version of money than just Bitcoin, because let me ask you, as libertarians, what would you rather have? One coin, one size fits all?
No, we want choices.
Oh,
we want
coins.
options. Yeah, we want choices.
Exactly, and so do I. And I think that together we can build a world where each community can not just have a coin, but they can govern themselves. They can attract interest to their cause. And at the same time, when it comes time to pay between communities, we can have something like the internet. I just want to say one last thing about that.
All right, fast.
Right now, right now we're in the era of computers would be mainframes. So paying gas on Ethereum is just like renting time on a mainframe. You got these punch cards, and you have to really scrunch down your code to fit. That's the era we have today. And how did we get to an era where everyone's addicted to their phones? It's because we got personal computers and the internet. That's what Intercoin is trying to do. It's trying to make it accessible to everyone.
That's an interesting analogy to suggest that right now, as far as technology is concerned, cryptocurrency is in the mainframe stage. It's really, really, really early. So neat things need to be built, and Intercoin sounds like it could be one of those things. Thanks, Greg, for the call, and check out exmarkets.com for that offering that should be very, very soon. We'll let you know. More coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
2070 tak Bharat.
In a huge blow to environmentalists and the organisers of the COP26 Climate Change Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced India will not achieve net zero carbon emissions until the year 2070. It's the first time he's committed to a date for the country to achieve net zero, but his target is 20 years later than the goals favoured by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, hosting the event in Glasgow. He opened the conference urging strong and decisive leadership to deal with climate change.
Let us think about those billions of beady eyes that are watching us. And let us think of the billions more of the unborn, whose anger will be all the greater if we fail.
The opening day also heard an apology from US President Joe Biden over the decision by his predecessor Donald Trump to withdraw from the Paris climate change accords.
I guess I shouldn't apologize, but I do apologize for the fact the United States, the last administration, pulled out of the Paris Accords and put us sort of behind the 8 ball.
In his main speech to the conference, President Biden said climate change is not just an environmental emergency, but also an economic opportunity to create new green jobs. Meanwhile, back on Capitol Hill today, a political earthquake for the Biden White House.
For the sake of the country, I urge the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Holding this bill hostage is not going to work.
Senator Joe Manchin, a right-leaning Democrat from West Virginia, says he is not yet ready to vote for President Biden's public spending proposals, a key demand of left-wing Democrats who say they won't back the president's infrastructure plans unless he does. It raises huge questions once again about when the president's key domestic legislative initiatives will be put to a vote on Capitol Hill. In other news, the number of people who have died as a result of COVID-19 has now topped 5 million globally. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Nick Harper reports.
As Johns Hopkins University's tracker only shows confirmed cases, including almost 750,000 people in the US, some experts predict the true number of deaths is even higher, perhaps double the 5 million figure. It comes as health officials warn of a potential surge, in particular in Europe and Southeast Asia, even as many countries relax travel restrictions.
The Queen has been seen taking a drive in the grounds of Windsor Castle. The 95-year-old took to the wheel of a Jaguar estate car just days after doctors advised her to spend 2 more weeks resting. The US Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments over a new abortion law in Texas that is the most restrictive in the United States. There are indications the justices will let abortion providers pursue their legal challenges. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today, of course, at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. And one big question hanging over the event: can politicians deliver on society's demand for change in the face of a warming planet? President Biden raised eyebrows in Rome on Friday by travelling in an 85-car convoy to his meeting with Pope Francis, which the White House says was dominated by talk of climate change. Private planes have been ferrying global delegations to Scotland for the summit. Juliet Davenport is a climate scientist and environmental activist who now runs Atrato On-Site Energy, a renewable energy investment trust.
I think our leaders do need to take a big step forward, and they do need to think much more carefully about the optics of what they do. Right. I think companies are making bigger steps in some senses than the politicians. We're seeing global corporations committing to 2050 targets by 2030. Yep. We've got lots of investment coming into the sector, lots of supermarkets looking at putting solar panels on the roof to reduce their cost and improve their carbon. So personally, I think business will make this happen, and we might leave the politicians in our wake.
She says COP26 will show whether politicians are capable of catching up with the moves private business has already made to combat climate change. Activists, of course, argue both the public and private sectors need to be doing far more. The main news again in a huge blow to the organisers of the COP26 Climate Change Summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced India will not achieve net zero until the year 2070. In a huge blow to Joe Biden, a Conservative Democrat in the US Senate says he's not yet ready to support the president's public spending measures. And the number of people who have died globally of COVID-19 has now topped 5 million. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Calling it the most effective means to reaching one's full earning potential, a new report issued by the Employee Benefit Research Institute this week found that violently slamming one's supervisor against a wall and shouting, "Cash, I need more cash," is still the leading tactic for securing a raise amongst American workers.
We found that employees have the most success negotiating their salaries when they stride confidently into their supervisor's office, manhandle them like a rag doll, and demand more money right now.
Experts confirmed that the majority of employees who managed to increase their salaries maintained direct eye contact with their supervisors while reiterating that they were not f***ing around, emphasizing their position with phrases such as, "Give me the money now," and "I said more cash, old man." The Onion sat down with Kevin Simmons, who recently applied these methods in negotiating a competitive bump in his annual salary.
So the other day I walked right into his office, grabbed his throat with my hand, and told him straight up, "Start paying me more f***ing money today." And I grabbed $100 out of his wallet and told him that was a good start.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. Coming up here tonight, we talk about the Pope and what he gets wrong on a few different issues that Bonnie wanted to share. Also, pessimism. Are people pessimistic more so than they are optimistic? Aria, you've got that story, and I got the same one. Plus, your phone calls and thoughts about whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And a mayoral candidate planning to turn New York City, since we just had Greg on from Intercoin, he's in New York City, was talking about launching a city coin, a New York City coin. Of course, there's already been a Miami coin that came out earlier this year, and apparently he's been doing fairly well. Now, I have not looked in on it in the last several weeks, but it came out, I think, like a couple months ago.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's I forget what platform it's based on. Of course it's a token, a crypto token of some sort, but it's on one of the newer token platforms.
Okay.
And it raised like millions of dollars for the city of Miami. Now, that's nothing that excites me personally, because I don't want to see governments getting even more money, because the Miami city government isn't going to say, "Oh, hey, look at all these millions we got in from this crypto. We're cutting property taxes."
Sadly.
They're not going to do that. They're going to take that money and they're going to spend it all, because that's what governments do. They're never going to lower taxes. Like if there actually was a city that said, "Hey, we're issuing our own crypto token, and for every dollar's worth of, tokens that get sold, we're going to go ahead and lower the property tax or get rid of sales tax or whatever."
Wasn't this the whole point of lotteries, though?
To lower taxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, never happened, did it?
No. Like, hey, well, it's a voluntary tax on the gullible, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just turned out to be an additional money-raising scheme for these states to implement them.
Well, I've never even heard that was the original goal.
Yeah, the old claim was they were going to use it to pay for the schools.
Yeah.
For the children.
And then what they would do...
Which would have been fine,
Yeah. Well, and then what they would do, if I recall correctly, and feel free to call in and correct me if I'm wrong on this, was they would put the lotto money to the school budget and then just use the other money from the schools for something else. So it's not like they would actually reduce the size of the government or, even things out. It's like, oh, more money, we'll spend it. So,
Wow.
I can't get excited about these city coins unless there actually was a city that said, you know what, we'll fund ourselves completely voluntarily if we can through this coin. Now that would be something worth talking about. That would be like, oh my God, I might want to move there. Like if there was actually a city that had no confiscatory taxation scheme and actually funded itself voluntarily, that would actually be the libertarian city.
It would be. It's also never going to, unlikely to ever exist.
not anytime soon. But let's go to your phone calls and thoughts. Dave Ridley's on the line, and he is from RidleyReport.com. Go ahead, Dave.
I have great news. New Hampshire has seceded.
What?
Really?
Well, not in all the respects that we might want it to. But apparently, so the New Hampshire's like chapter, or like New Hampshire's, I guess some of their school boards have withdrawn from a national school board organization because of its advocacy for labeling parents as domestic terrorists.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So I'm looking up the details here. This is according to Gateway Pundit. And I managed to lose my place right before I went on the air.
Now, they're not saying that all parents are domestic terrorists. Is it only certain parents that have certain beliefs?
Well, you've heard this, this national story, about the Department of Justice or, some branch.
You still there? Dave? Uh-oh.
I thought it had something to do with critical race theory. I didn't think it had anything to do with
Can you hear me now?
We have you now, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So there was this national story where this some Fed agency was trying to label angry parents as domestic terrorists because they were showing up at school board meetings and complaining and whatnot.
Oh, okay. So just any angry parent. Okay, got it.
Well, I don't know which parents precisely they were, they were targeting, but there was just this federal claim that some parents were domestic terrorists, right? So, or they would be classified as domestic terrorists. But yeah, I'm curious. Okay, here it is. TheGatewayPundit.com. So it's New Hampshire and Pennsylvania join Ohio, Missouri, and withdraw from the National School Boards Association over letter labeling parents domestic terrorists, unquote.
Okay. Well, that's good news. I mean, most of the time school boards are completely useless, and I, really have no interest in whatsoever in what they're doing because you really can't change them in any meaningful sense unless you have a significant number of people come to these like school board. What do they have? There's this once a year meeting here in Keene that happens where if you've got enough people, you could maybe stop them from raising the budget, but you really can't do much else to stop this insane process of government education. It has to be stopped on a legislative level if we're going to end government schools. So, like, even spending time and effort on the school board, we tried for years here in Keene. It's just we all gave up after like
Rochelle
a decade.
Kelly, who was one of the parents who took their kids to the playground in Concord, she was actually on the school of the school boards, and she got ousted or censured or something. I don't remember exactly what.
Right, because she got arrested for taking her kids to the playground.
Yeah, so, and she was on the school board, and they still managed to just completely disregard everything she had to say.
Yeah, school boards suck. I mean, I'm glad to hear that some of them did something right, Dave, but that's really, it's hard to really care.
I have the exact quote here. It says, this email is to inform you that the NHSBA has decided to withdraw its membership from the National School Boards Association, effective immediately. NBA's recent actions have made our continued membership untenable, and unquote. And the article says, quote, the National School Board was so outraged that parents were speaking out in defense of their children that they shamelessly urged the DOJ to use the Patriot Act, among other enforceable actions against them, unquote.
Yeah, just another reason why parents ought to get their kids the hell out of government schools entirely. You're never going to change them. The only way to, keep your kids safe from this insanity and this brainwashing is to keep them out.
Ridley's story does sound, I'm optimistic about it, at least just hearing that we're, one tiny step less part of the federal government in New Hampshire.
True, but it's probably a private association. It's probably not even a governmental agency. You know, it's like the School Board
Sadly.
Association. It's sort of like, sounds like a union, basically, of school boards in that way.
I thought you said federal.
Yeah, it's a national organization, sort of like the National Education Association, which is the teachers' union. That's my understanding of it. But Ridley, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, this clarifies a little bit more about it. Let's see, I lost my place again. The quote, the New Hampshire School Boards Association is the latest to leave the NSBA after it sent a letter to Biden that begs him to use federal law enforcement agencies against parents and investigate them for domestic terrorism and hate crimes threats, unquote.
Yeah, the National School Boards Association is a nonprofit educational organization operating as a federation of state associations of school boards. So it's the largest group of school boards in the United States. And so the New Hampshire Association of School Boards left that group, and I would rather they announced they were going to abolish themselves, but you know, this is okay. Thanks, Dave, for the call tonight, man. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160, but you will never change these organizations as a parent or even a group of concerned parents, because they are not easy to change. They're not designed to be a change. I remember when we were looking at people running for school board here in Keene, which is something that some of the Free Staters did several years back for a number of years, and then we just dropped the whole thing because it was just so pointless. Like,
well, you got to focus your efforts, right? And even if we manage to get, some number of libertarians or Free Staters on school boards, we'd have to have a majority on one of them in order to accomplish anything.
Well, there's that, but even then you still couldn't really accomplish that much because, again, all these things are authorized at the state level. So, you can't just, the school board can't abolish itself. And there was actually some stupid rule like that you have to vote on things. Like if you actually did get on the school board and some issue comes up and let's say you didn't want to vote on that. Like they force you to have a vote or something. Like it's your obligation by swearing to the school board that you'll vote on everything that they put in front of you.
Just vote no on everything.
Yeah, but that doesn't always work, depending on the issue. So it was, I just forget exactly what it was, but it was just like some insanely restrictive thing on your freedom to choose. More coming up.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you join us if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up anything that's on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. Are people more pessimistic than they are optimistic? We'll look into that coming up here in moments. And also, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. Had a local business owner call me up today to ask some questions about cryptocurrency. More people are getting interested than ever before. And just yesterday, according to Captain Kickass on last night's show, apparently Halloween was the very day that Satoshi Nakamoto announced the Bitcoin white paper back in 2008. So it is now.
It was sometime in November.
Apparently it was Halloween. Okay. At least that's what they were celebrating yesterday.
Bitcoin.com was saying that yesterday. So.
Yeah, I saw it in more than one place yesterday, so it must be a thing. So it's another good thing to celebrate on Halloween is Bitcoin's kind of birthday, at least the birthday publicly of the idea. And then it wasn't until I think like January 4th until the Bitcoin network actually came online and you could start mining it and join it. And so, yeah, 13 years from the Bitcoin white paper. We've hit that mark, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say it is the 13th birthday, so it will be unlucky for 1 year.
I doubt that.
It doesn't look like it.
Yes. Well, anything can happen. We don't know. But right now, Bitcoin's real strong. It's over $60,000 per unit. It hit an all-time high just, 2 weeks ago or something like that of $67,000.
I recently found out about a website that actually live tracks the amount of money you would have now or how valuable your Bitcoin would be if on April the 15th you had used your stimulus check to buy Bitcoin.
You mean in 2020's April the 15th?
Yes.
It's over $12,000, right?
I think the last I saw it was a screenshot of like 10,800 or something like that.
It must have been like 12 when it was 67 or something like that, 67,000.
Either way, it's phenomenal.
It's 10x.
Growth.
It's roughly 10x up from if you did, as I think we all suggested that you do.
I know for sure I suggested it.
Yeah.
I hope people out there listened, but I doubt it.
Well, it's still not too late. You can go to Bitcoin.com. Get the basics down about cryptocurrency. There's some important ideas that you should learn about, like decentralization. Why is money better when it's in a decentralized form? What does that mean? Distributed. What's that all about? So learn the basics about crypto. Hit Get Started at the top of the page over at Bitcoin.com. You can also go to their news site over at news.bitcoin.com. And that is where you will find the latest news headlines updated every single day. This one is actually a few weeks old, but I've been holding on to it. And since we were talking a little bit about New York City with Greg from Intercoin, I thought this was an interesting story. At news.bitcoin.com, they reported that Curtis Sliwa, is the candidate for New York City mayor. Now, he's not the incumbent, right? It's always hard to beat the incumbent. He said that he will make the New York City the most cryptocurrency-friendly city in the United States if he is elected. Now, how he'll do that, I'm not really sure.
Aren't they currently like one of the most unfriendly?
New York State specifically is the most unfriendly place for cryptocurrency businesses. Not businesses accepting crypto, like here in Keene, where there's several restaurants and a dentist and a doctor and a car repair place that accept crypto. You can still, as I understand it, I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't legal advice, but as I understand it, if you're just a business and you want to accept crypto from customers, that's not regulated in New York State. But if you're like a cryptocurrency exchange, like a Coinbase, or you want to do something like that, you're just all crypto, that's your business, kind of exchanging things or whatever, then there's severe regulations. New York State has what's called the BIT license, and that's now been in place, I think, since around 2015 or 2016, so like half a decade. And only a few companies have been able to actually navigate the BIT license hoops in order to get one of these things. It's like at least $100,000 fee. You've got to have, lawyers. You've got to fill out, God knows how many forms and ridiculous hoop jumping in order to have a chance at getting approved.
Are you saying New York is the most restricted place on earth? Or just the most restricted
I think you might
state?
get put to death if you use Bitcoin in like Turkey or something like that. But China,
that's not what Mark said. Mark told
Mark
me that Bitcoin was everywhere, and he sent me a picture of this thing that said like use BitPay at a restaurant.
Where was this at?
In Turkey.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'd heard that Turkey outlawed it.
But in China, I forgot China
did outlaw it, so you might go to prison in parts of China, maybe all of China, but at least in the United States, New York is the most China-like of the rest of the states. So not a real good place for operating a crypto-oriented business in general. But Curtis Sliwa says he wants to make New York City the most cryptocurrency-friendly place in the United States. Now, this guy, a lot of people in New York City know who he is. Now, you guys have probably never heard of him.
I've never heard of him.
He wears a beret. He wears this red beret, and he actually founded a group, I think years ago, or was co-founder of it, called like the Guardian Angels, if I recall correctly. They actually don't mention that here in this particular... Oh, yeah, no, they do mention it. Okay, it's a nonprofit organization of unarmed crime prevention. So back when New York City was sort of known as like a crime capital where there was all kinds of violent crime happening, this guy was a founder of a group that kind of stood up against that somehow. Now, I don't know all the history of it, but he's also a talk show host. I've seen him at like the talk radio conventions or whatever. He's on like the big talk station, one of the big talk stations there in New York City. He's kind of made the rounds to the different stations. So he's well known. I would say, he's got a chance to possibly win this election. Of course, again, he's up against an incumbent. He tweeted Wednesday, or a few weeks ago, quote, "As New York City mayor, I'll make New York City the most cryptocurrency-friendly city in the nation. Property taxes, fines, and fees will be payable in crypto. We'll open more crypto ATMs and incentivize businesses to accept crypto. We must modernize our economy and make it accessible for all."
I mean, most of that sounds good, but I don't see why anyone would want to pay fines or taxes or any of these other things in cryptocurrency. No. You use the crappy government money to pay the government.
Right.
You keep the good money and use it to pay your fellow citizens.
Yeah, exactly. Now, on the other hand, if all you have is cryptocurrency, well, then you might want to pay property taxes in cryptocurrency. Like if it were an option, I mean, ideally, I don't want to have dollars. Like to me, dollars are haram, as the Muslims would say. It is forbidden, essentially. This is an evil currency. Now, property taxes are evil as well, but we know that they're going to do violence against us if we don't pay it. So most people, they do what they're told.
Yeah, but it's like paying double property taxes if you pay them in cryptocurrencies and then it goes up immediately.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but my point is if all you have is cryptocurrency, then you don't want to have dollars.
Well, then you buy some dollars to pay your...
Yeah, but I don't want to touch the dollars. Like, if I can pay in cryptocurrency, I'm going to pay I can't right now because of the bail conditions I'm on. But
I mean, in an ideal world, I would, do as Bonnie said and purchase some dollars and give those to the government so that, it gets its own useless currency back.
Yeah.
And someone else gets the cryptocurrency to do something positive with it.
That's a good point, to keep it out of their hands. Yeah. I see what you're saying there.
Instead of, the government developing a way where it can use Bitcoin to buy bombs or whatever, it's still stuck using the dirty fiat because no one is giving them the good stuff, the good money.
Apparently, he's not the only one, though. There's another guy running for mayor. Former police officer Eric Adams promised that New York will be the center of all technology, including the center of Bitcoins. And apparently he won the Democratic mayoral primary while Sliwa prevailed in the Republican mayoral primary. Oh, wow. So maybe the current mayor isn't actually running. Maybe there is no incumbent in this race.
Both candidates are
talking about Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
kind of interesting. Doesn't make me want to move to New York City, though, I'll tell you that. Nor do I even want to visit New York City anymore with all the stupid mask mandates and all their vaccine passport nonsense. They're going to have a tough time attracting people to come to this city, even with Bitcoin acceptance. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
2070 tak Bharat.
In a huge blow to environmentalists and the organisers of the COP26 Climate Change Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced India will not achieve net zero carbon emissions until the year 2070. It's the first time he's committed to a date for the country to achieve net zero, but his target is 20 years later than the goals favoured by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, hosting the event in Glasgow. He opened the conference urging strong and decisive leadership to deal with climate change.
Let us think about those billions of beady eyes that are watching us. And let us think of the billions more of the unborn whose anger will be all the greater if we fail.
The opening day also heard an apology from US President Joe Biden over the decision by his predecessor Donald Trump to withdraw from the Paris climate change accords.
I guess I shouldn't apologize, but I do apologize for the fact the United States, the last administration pulled out of the Paris Accords and put us sort of behind the eight ball.
In his main speech to the conference, President Biden said climate change is not just an environmental emergency, but also an economic opportunity to create new green jobs. Meanwhile, back on Capitol Hill today, a political earthquake for the Biden White House.
For the sake of the country, I urge the House to vote and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Holding this bill hostage is not going to work.
Senator Joe Manchin, a right-leaning Democrat from West Virginia, says he is not yet ready to vote for President Biden's public spending proposals, a key demand of left-wing Democrats who say they won't back the president's infrastructure plans unless he does. It raises huge questions once again about when the president's key domestic legislative initiatives will be put to a vote on Capitol Hill. In other news, the number of people who have died as a result of COVID-19 has now topped 5 million globally. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Nick Harper reports.
As Johns Hopkins University's tracker only shows confirmed cases, including almost 750,000 people in the US, some experts predict the true number of deaths is even higher, perhaps double the 5 million figure. It comes as health officials warn of a potential surge, in particular in Europe and Southeast Asia, even as many countries relax travel restrictions.
The Queen has been seen taking a drive in the grounds of Windsor Castle. The 95-year-old took to the wheel of a Jaguar estate car just days after doctors advised her to spend 2 more weeks resting. The US Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments over a new abortion law in Texas that is the most restrictive in the United States. There are indications the justices will let abortion providers pursue their legal challenges. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We'll talk about pessimism coming up here in a bit, plus the Pope and what he gets wrong when it comes to greed, hunger, and inflation. Those are all stuff that we got on deck. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And don't forget, you can join us online. Just head over to freetalklive.com. We've got archives there. You can, I would recommend, subscribe to our podcast. That's the easiest way to receive Free Talk Live archives, and they just come straight into your podcast client. You don't have to think about it. But if you just want to go and click and download an episode anytime, you can go to freetalklive.com. There's a little podcast widget on the left-hand side of the page, or if you're on mobile, you'll have to scroll down a little ways to find it. But just click the share button, and then the download link will appear. This little icon. So there's the share icon, and then the download icon, and boom, there you go. You just downloaded the latest episode or episodes of Free Talk Live. We're going to go to your calls and thoughts. Shane is on the line in West Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Shane.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering how to switch my currency over from Coinbase to Edge.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, obviously we can't give detailed technical support on a national radio show, but basically what you're referring to, so our listeners who are maybe completely new to crypto understand, is Coinbase is a centralized exchange, which means it's owned by a corporation and they control the keys, what are called the private keys to your cryptocurrency wallet. So if you have Bitcoin that you've purchased with Coinbase or something else like Shiba Inu or Bitcoin Cash, they've got a bunch of different options there. If you've got that stuff on Coinbase, remember, you don't actually have control over that crypto unless you withdraw it from Coinbase to your own personal wallet, which is your own wallet where you're in custody of your crypto keys. And Edge allows you to do that. There's some other great wallets out there that do the same thing, like Exodus Wallet. That's another good one that I like a lot. These are wallets that they don't know who you are. Whereas Coinbase, when you sign up for Coinbase, they want to know what your social security number is. They want your ID. They want to have access to your bank account. Whereas,
well, there's no reason for the individual wallet like Exodus or the non-custodial wallet to know who you are because they're just applications. They're just interfaces that you use to interact with the blockchain.
Precisely. And they're both multi-crypto, so you can have different cryptos on Edge or Exodus or whatever. So if you've downloaded the Edge wallet for your phone, when you set these things up, they always give you backup information. You write down that information, put it in a very safe place because you don't want to break your phone, right? Like eventually phones break. They drop, they fall in, toilets or lakes or whatever, and then, your crypto would be gone forever.
That is one of the benefits of the Edge wallet in particular, is that, it uses a username, password, PIN number login system because Edge does have some sort of centralized server or something like that. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but if you just completely lose your device and haven't backed anything up, as long as you know your username and password, you can still get into it and recover your funds.
Yeah, as I understand it, Edge does some sort of fancy cryptographic hashing with your username and password that somehow, even if their server's down, that'll still work to unlock your wallet. But I don't know exactly how to explain that. I know Paul Pui from Edge has told us on the air how that is like a thing. But it's been
there's a lot of people out there who are smarter than I am who are working on these things.
Yeah, it's been years since I've heard the actual explanation for that. Like, what happens if your server goes down? Well, he had an answer for it. So you install the Edge wallet, you do the backup phrase, and then all you got to do is get your crypto address. So if it's Bitcoin BTC that you bought on Coinbase, you get your Bitcoin BTC address from Edge. And you put it into your Coinbase, however the hell you do that, because I haven't been on Coinbase in years now since they banned me years ago. And you put it in to Coinbase as your withdrawal. So, and then they just send it to you. I don't know how long they take.
Well, they don't just send it to you. They say, hey, this is going to take 3 to 5 business days.
Is it that bad?
It's been a long time for myself as well.
Go ahead, Shane.
I said, yes, it is. It's a pain in the butt to pull the funds back out.
Yeah, they don't want you to leave their service. They don't want you to take your crypto off of their service because it's valuable to them. They want to hold on to it. They want you to forget your password, or I guess you can recover your password with Coinbase, but they want you to lose access to your account, or die off.
I don't know if they're that evil, but they definitely do want to maintain control of your funds.
Maybe they're investing it without your knowledge or something like that.
Well, they just want to be the banks controlling your money for you on your behalf, for your own best interests.
Good, Shane.
There's fees going in and there's fees coming out.
Well, that's always true. Whenever you send cryptocurrency to anybody, anywhere, with a very few exceptions, all cryptos have a fee to send. And so you usually don't. There's no fees to receive cryptos with a wallet like Edge. But if you want to send a donation to somebody, or you want to buy a product, you always have to add a little bit more on for the fees. Now, with most cryptos like Bitcoin Cash or Dash, the fee is very, very small. It's not even worth talking about. It's so small. But with something like Ethereum or with Bitcoin BTC, well, now you're getting into a notable fee range, and especially with Ethereum, which is like $20 to $50 according to the charts right now to send an Ethereum transaction. So watch out for that one.
And a decent wallet will do this for you. It will add in the transaction fees and all of that for you so that you don't have to calculate them. I know that like Parity, which is sort of a Firefox extension kind of thing, it forces you to actually calculate those yourself. And that's how you end up with people sending like 34,000 Ethereum on accident in gas fees in order to send like 0.1 Ethereum because they have a typo or something like that. But a good wallet like Edge or Exodus will handle those things for you automatically. They still have ways where you can adjust them, if I recall correctly.
There's like an advanced menu or whatever. When you go and send on Edge, you have to like click the dots or something, and then you can adjust it. Shane, I hope we answered at least to some extent your question.
Yes, sir. Y'all sure did. I appreciate y'all's help. Y'all
Thanks,
have a good evening.
Good luck. Thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, so not your keys, not your coins. That's one of those important phrases to know when it comes to cryptocurrency. If you don't have the backup phrase, or in the case of Edge Wallet, it's a word, username and password, but with most wallets like Exodus, it's like a 12-word or an 18-word or 24-word series of words. If you didn't get that when you started your wallet, you don't have the keys.
You can get the password phrases from Edge too.
Yes, you can. There's a more advanced way of doing that with Edge. You're absolutely right. And for the power user, I would recommend taking that extra step, but it's not truly necessary with Edge because they've done a pretty good job of
making reliable,
making it newbie proof.
But it's supposed to be like if all the internet goes down.
Yeah. That would be helpful in that case. But of course, if the whole internet goes down, your crypto really isn't very useful in that case. So,
well just if Edge servers go down.
Yeah, supposedly the wallets would work, I guess, if Edge's servers went down. Although they also have, what is the type? There's another type of server that they do rely on because you're not using a full node. Anyway, getting too technical, but if you don't have backup information, you don't have control over your wallets. You've got a wallet that's custody is being operated by somebody who's not you. And that is
and you don't want that.
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation. Whether it's because Coinbase will turn over your wallet or your crypto to the government, which they could,
Seems
or
not unlikely,
or they just get hacked, or they go out of business tomorrow or something like that. Like, any of those things are a possibility.
And it sounds very possible and interesting that you said maybe they're investing it behind your back because, like with gold, those companies that say that they're holding your gold for you, sometimes they'll be like, okay, we'll give it to you, but take a long time because they have to acquire the gold.
To get the gold back.
Maybe they're doing that with some of these exchanges.
That is a very real possibility, Bonnie. In fact, I heard a rumor, and I have not checked this for myself, but I heard a rumor that somewhere deep in the terms of service that, no one reads. Come on. You didn't actually read the Coinbase terms of service, right?
Hell no.
Yeah. Somewhere in those terms of service, it says that if you want to withdraw from Coinbase, and if it serves Coinbase to do so, they can settle with you in US dollars if they want to. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's just what I've heard, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were true.
It would be annoying.
Like, oh, well, we know you wanted the Bitcoin, but Section 57Z of our terms of service says that if we have a tough time giving you the Bitcoin, we can just give you the equivalent amount in dollars. So here you go. That'd be a real bummer, wouldn't it?
not what you want out of a cryptocurrency exchange.
Definitely not. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
We've been talking about some crypto stuff on the way. We'll talk about pessimism versus optimism and some critiques of the Pope. That's all coming up here But since we've been talking crypto, I've got another story related to New York that I've been holding on to for a little bit, and that is another example of how heavy-handed the state of New York is when it comes to cryptocurrency businesses. There's some states like New Hampshire and Wyoming, which are two of the best states in which to run a cryptocurrency-related business. As far as, if you're, I'm not just talking about businesses accepting crypto. I mean, like, crypto's what you do. Like, you're making a new exchange or something like that. You've got some sort of crypto tech that you're working on. Like Library, for instance, is based here in New Hampshire, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the founder of Ravencoin, Bruce Fenton, moved up to New Hampshire from Massachusetts.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Oh,
no,
yeah.
I love Ravencoin.
Yeah, Bruce is a really cool guy. He threw a cryptocurrency conference like 4 years in a row.
Oh, I didn't know he lived in New Hampshire. That's awesome.
He's out on the seacoast. I think that they only stopped the crypto conference last year because of COVID, so I don't know if they're going to bring it back this year. It usually happens around this time. We broadcast from that event for like 3 or 4 years.
So that was before I moved here, though.
Okay, that makes
But
sense.
still, Ravencoin is awesome. It's one of the few X16R tokens, which means CPU mineable and still GPU mineable, designed to be resistant to ASICs and all of this stuff that, is actually worth your time to just have a GPU sitting back there mining Ravencoin. Of course, I can't do this now, but I did spend the better part of the last 2 years just having a PC sitting there mining Ravencoin.
Why is it bad for other cryptos to have a CPU mining?
Oh, Raven is CPU mining, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that means you can mine it with a laptop computer or a desktop computer or something.
I mean,
You don't
obviously, if you have a
something special.
GPU, you're going to do better.
Yeah.
But you can still just use a CPU.
But I thought you could use a CPU for anything.
No.
To mine anything.
Some things like Bitcoin, for instance, you could not do.
In theory, you could, but you're never going to actually be the one who mines a block using a laptop anymore.
Because it's too slow?
Basically, it doesn't have what it takes.
The space is super competitive. I mean, an ASIC costs like $12,000 to $17,000, and the cost of mining a single block at this point is like $5,000 to $8,000 or something like that. No, you're not getting something like that out of a laptop. People are competing for the Bitcoins, and to do that, they wanted faster and better computers so they could be the first one to them.
An ASIC is a specially designed chip that exists for one purpose, which is to mine Bitcoin.
Wow.
And so some coins like Raven are what you called ASIC resistant, which actually they don't want ASICs entering their competition. They want the average person to be able to participate in mining.
Nice.
And I think Monero's one of those as well, if I recall correctly, but I'm not 100. It may not be CPU, but it might be GPU, meaning that you have to use a graphics card.
I don't know if it's ASIC
sure.
resistant, but I know that there are plenty of Monero pools where you can contribute, a really small amount of hash power, which is, computing power,
right,
and still get some sort of reward from it.
Yeah. So if you're planning on setting up like a mining farm or mining operation or a cryptocurrency exchange, you don't want to do it in New York. And that's why when you try to join certain websites, like Shapeshift, for instance, I believe still does this, if I recall correctly, at least as of the last time I was there, which is sometime last year. If an IP address is detected by Shapeshift that is in New York, they'll tell you, sorry, we're not going to serve you.
Wow.
And I think even local Bitcoins ended up doing that after some amount of time, where if you were IP checked to be in New York or Washington State or something, that they just would not do business with you because those are two of the worst states when it comes to crypto regulations.
Man, the whole show tonight has made me realize just how much I miss being able to use cryptocurrency, man.
It's so frustrating. I was on the phone with this business owner today here in Keene, longtime business owner, big name in the area, and she had questions for me. I'm like, well, I can answer your questions. I just can't actually help you test it out, right? Like, I can't send you a free. Like, normally, if a business owner wanted to get a crypto wallet set up, I'd send them their first $100 worth of crypto just to say, hey, welcome aboard, and here, test it out. You can see what this is like and try, see what the price does over time. I can't do that now, so I feel like I'm crippled from being able to do my mission, which is to help people come on board with crypto.
It's got to be worse for you than it is for me, but for the last 2 years, the vast majority of things that I've done on a day-to-day basis involved cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
For the last 7 months or so, I've just been sort of not thinking about it, not dealing with it. But tonight I'm sitting here, I'm like,
man,
I actually legitimately miss it.
Yeah, I know.
It made
feeling.
Life so much easier.
Yeah, and it was so much fun too.
It was
and
fun.
they've just stripped that away from us simply because we've been charged with some, victimless financial quote unquote crimes. So here's another example for you. New York Attorney General's office has issued or alleged unnamed crypto lending platforms operating in the state have engaged in unlawful activities and have ordered 3 others to provide information on their business. In a recent announcement, the Attorney General's office in New York said it has ordered 2 crypto lending platforms that they redacted the names of from the press release to, quote, cease any and all such activity, unquote, relating to selling or offering securities and commodities within 10 days. The Attorney General, Letitia James, also requested that 3 other businesses, also names redacted, provide details on their lending products, policies, procedures, clients in the state, and other relevant information.
It's going to be really funny when these entities turn out to be DeFi organizations, decentralized finance organizations, and there's no one for the state of New York to actually send these stupid letters to.
Well, that would be funny, but they're likely targeting companies like Nexo and Celsius and other organizations like those. Those are the 2 biggest from what I understand. BlockFi is another one. In fact, New Jersey recently ordered BlockFi to stop offering its lending product in New Jersey. And New Jersey also recently piled on and hit Celsius with similar actions in one day, telling them to cease and desist, and ordered them to appear in court saying, quote, if you sell securities in New Jersey, you need to comply with New Jersey's securities laws.
But they're not selling anything in New Jersey. They just have customers in New Jersey.
That's good enough for the New Jersey gang.
But that's not the way it works.
Well,
right? Like if
when they throw their weight around, they're going to do what they're told.
If someone from California buys a guitar from me, I didn't sell a guitar in California. I sold a guitar in New Hampshire. The customer may have bought a guitar in California, but they bought it from someone in New Hampshire.
Most of these companies are not going to want to, argue these points.
They should, because that's the logical, sensible approach here. And if the law isn't logical and sensible, then throw it out.
They're just going to do what they're told, even though, as Cointelegraph reports, the request for information from the 3 companies wasn't even legally binding. But the New York Attorney General's office left the door open to serving them a subpoena in the letter. The order to shut down operations is backed by the state's Martin Act, which grants the AG the enforcement power to bring civil or criminal charges against unregistered securities offerings. Now, I am not like a stocks expert or a finance expert or whatever, but as I understand, a security is something that like a company sells that could go up in value, right? Like it's like these tokens that they have are called securities tokens, where you're buying a token from a company on the expectation that it'll go up and it'll give you like a piece of the action, basically. Isn't that what it is?
I don't know. I remember when the SEC first went after Library, I tried to look into what a security was and all of these other things, because it was the Security and Exchange Commission that went after Library.
And it's still going after them.
And within like 3 minutes of the first paragraph of this explanation from one of these websites designed to, make it simple to understand, I was just totally lost.
Yeah, it is hard to understand these things. What are securities in investing? I don't know. Some tradable financial assets such as equities or fixed income instruments that are purchased with the intention of holding them for investment.
See, but then you have to know what an equity is and what
fixed income instrument is.
So you have to look those up, and then they're going to also have confusing definitions that you have to look up, and it's just a rabbit hole.
Yeah, and that's the idea, is to make it as confusing as possible, so you have to hire an attorney to be able to give you an answer as to what they might mean. But even when you do that, you always have to remember the attorney's only giving you an opinion. Right? Attorneys have opinions on the law. They can't know for sure what it says. They just have their best guess.
The attorney's like, I think this is what it's saying.
Right.
And then the government's attorney is like, well, we think this is what it's saying.
And then you have to go to another attorney in a robe to figure it out.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, that attorney is the magical one who gets to determine what it actually says. And
unless you take it to the other attorneys that are above him in the robes, and then they make a different decision and overturn the first attorney in a robe. But then you could take it to the 9 attorneys that are in the robes above them, and then they might make a final decision until, of course, a different person takes a similar case up to the 9 people in the robes, and then since they're different people, they make a different decision and overturn the previous decision. Yeah.
And there's no better way. This is how it has to be.
This is the best system in the world, Bonnie.
Yeah, I mean, thank goodness for this wonderful judicial system we have. What would we do without it?
Anyway, keep your crypto businesses out of New York and New Jersey. These places hate cryptocurrency. They're trying to shut down simple, earn interest on your crypto operations. That's who they're targeting. And there's more coming up here.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A majority of the justices on the U.S. Supreme Court have signaled they would allow abortion providers to pursue a court challenge to a recent and controversial Texas law. That law has virtually ended abortions in the state. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman has that story.
The Supreme Court was asked to decide whether Texas abortion providers and the Department of Justice are allowed to challenge the state's law. It bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and allows citizens to sue anyone involved in the process. After almost 3 hours of arguments, a majority of the justices appeared sympathetic to the case brought by Texas abortion providers. They argued the new law has had a harmful, chilling effect on abortions in the state since it took effect September 1st.
Around 120 world leaders and delegates are attending the COP26 climate summit in Scotland with a focus on limiting a global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke on the opening day to outline U.S. commitments to reducing emissions by 2030.
The United States will be able to meet the ambitious target I set in the Leaders Summit in Climate back in April, reducing U.S. emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. We'll demonstrate to the world the United States is not only back at the table, but hopefully leading by the power of our example.
Later in the day, a group of more than 100 world leaders agreed to sign a pledge to end deforestation by the year 2030. The White House Pandemic Response Coordinator says he expects the vaccination program for children aged 5 to 11 against COVID-19 to begin running at full strength next week. Regulatory approval for children's shots using the Pfizer vaccine could be granted as soon as Tuesday, pending a decision from the Centers for Disease Control. It's still unclear how many parents of the roughly 28 million U.S. children in that age range will allow their children to be vaccinated. Initial surveys indicate that about 1 in 3 parents will opt to do so immediately. The Dow Jones and S&P 500 moved into record territory as trading entered a new month on a positive note. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Tesla became a $1 trillion company last week, and its shares rose again Monday.
closing the day up around 8.5%. The Dow Jones closed up 0.25% and the S&P 0.2% to close at fresh record highs. The Nasdaq also ended the day up 0.6%. The Federal Reserve begins its two-day meeting on Tuesday, and Wall Street widely expects the central bank to begin tapering its monthly bond buying program.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today, of course, at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. And one big question hanging over the event: can politicians deliver on society's demand for change in the face of a warming planet? President Biden raised eyebrows in Rome on Friday by travelling in an 85-car convoy to his meeting with Pope Francis, which the White House says was dominated by talk of climate change. Private planes have been ferrying global delegations to Scotland for the summit. Juliet Davenport is a climate scientist and environmental activist who now runs Atrato On-Site Energy, a renewable energy investment trust.
I think our leaders do need to take a big step forward, and they do need to think much more carefully about the optics of what they do. Right. I think companies are making bigger steps in some senses than the politicians. We're seeing global corporations committing to 2050 targets by 2030. Yep. We've got lots of investment coming into the sector, lots of supermarkets looking at putting solar panels on the roof to reduce their cost and improve their carbon. So personally, I think business will make this happen, and we might leave the politicians in our wake.
She says COP26 will show whether politicians are capable of catching up with the moves private business has already made to combat climate change. Activists, of course, argue both the public and private sectors need to be doing far more. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. A majority of the justices on the U.S. Supreme Court signaled they would allow abortion providers to pursue a court challenge to a recent and controversial Texas law. A group of more than 100 world leaders agrees to sign a pledge to end deforestation by the end of the decade. And the White House prepares to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for children, pending a decision from the Centers for Disease Control. That is the latest feature story news.
An update now on a legal battle emerging around the Onion News Network's own Jode Kressbeckler. After the shocking story yesterday that a group of assailants attacked Congressman William Cummings, tied him to a horse, and dragged him through a briar patch, some are now saying these statements from Mr. Kressbeckler last week may have incited the attack.
Bootlegging Congressman Cummings ought to be tied to a horse and drugged through a briar patch.
Mr. Kressbeckler's show is billed as an opinion and entertainment program.
Yes,
and he
is.
even calls himself nothing but a caterwauling old badger, so the claim that he would incite people to violence seems pretty far-fetched.
He displayed a map of Congressman Cummings' home in relation to the nearest briar patch, told his viewers where to purchase a, quote, good pulling horse, and used a life-size dummy of Congressman Cummings to demonstrate effective knot-tying techniques.
Right. I think most reasonable people would see that as simply a ribald political satire.
Right.
Briar patch is obviously a metaphor for the prickly political atmosphere in Washington, and drag from a horse means something else.
Makes sense to me.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, we can talk about what Pope Francis gets wrong about greed, hunger, and inflation. This is a story that Bonnie brought in to share tonight from the Foundation for Economic Education. But first, Aria, you got something about pessimism. And as you said earlier, you and I tend to be optimists, and Bonnie, I think you are
Me
as
too.
well. So we're all three optimists here on the show tonight, and this caught my eye, the headline did. What's the story?
Well, do people naturally expect good things in their life and shoo away the thought of negative events? The theory that most people have a bias towards thinking optimistically is a common one. For instance, the UK government even accounts for this supposed bias while planning large infrastructure projects. Now, however, new research is calling the claim into serious question. In fact, researchers from the University of Bath say people may be naturally pessimistic after all. People have blamed, quote, irrational optimism bias for any number of issues over the years, including financial crises, climate change inaction, and on an individual level, a person's failure to properly look after their own health. So they're saying the reasons that people don't look after their own health, or the reason that we saw the 2007 recession, or no one doing anything about climate change, is that we're optimistically thinking, oh, well, things will work out just fine.
Most of the time they do.
They do.
Yeah.
But that's not the ultimate reason for all of that. See, we're the rare ones in being the optimists who think, yeah, it's going to be fine. One way or the other, it's going to be fine. When you're always expecting things to go your way,
where's your story coming from, by the way?
Drudge Report.
Drudge Report, okay.
When you're always expecting things to go your way, why plan for the worst case scenario?
I would say that Ian, at least I've noticed, he doesn't necessarily always say everything's going to be fine. He says no point in worrying about it, and that's kind of an approach I've tried to take on.
Well, because it's inevitable that in life there are going to be downs, right? Like in order to have the experience of an up, you have to also have the experience of being down. There has to be some sort of negative. There has to be a bad time in order for you to really be able to appreciate what the good times are like. This is the contrast of the world that we live in.
And all of that.
Yeah. So if you understand that those times are going to come, or the black swan events or whatever, that there was a book that somebody sent me when I was in jail the first time for civil disobedience back a decade ago. I read this book, and it's like, well, we know that black swan events are going to happen. And what a black swan event is a black swan is a very rare kind of swan, right? Like,
sure,
most swans are white swans, but every now and then there's this black swan. And so the analogy is that this is also true of life. You know, there's sort of the expected events, and then there's the unexpected events that can totally change something, like, you know, the stock market crash or whatever it might be. But that's not to say that these events are unpredictable, in that we know there are going to be wild, crazy things that happen. We just don't know exactly what they are or exactly when they might strike, but we know they're going to happen. So you just have to know that everything's going to, for the most part, work out okay, because, well, that's just sort of the history of things. That's sort of the nature of things, is that even when bad things happen, there's always silver linings and good things that grow out of them. Every end is a new beginning.
I really hate this question, though. When you're always expecting things to go your way, why plan for the worst case scenario? That just because I'm an optimist doesn't mean that I don't plan for the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
You know, I expect bad things to happen, and I plan for the eventuality that, you know, I can anticipate some amount of bad things happening and have a plan in place for when those bad things do in fact happen.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm pessimistic. It means I'm realistic. I know that things are going to be okay, but there are going to be some bumps along the way that I have to be able to plan around.
Yeah, the question indicates a lack of understanding by whoever it is that wrote this particular story, because they're describing more of like a Pollyanna syndrome, of the belief that everything's always fine. You know, like there's nothing ever that goes wrong, and that's not true.
Yeah, that's not optimism at all.
No, that's just ignorance.
So this new study uncovers serious flaws in the previous research that supported this idea over the years. Researchers explain that those studies erroneously generated, quote, false positives, or data patterns that falsely suggest people are being overly optimistic. The team conducted several experiments to reach these conclusions, all of which used, quote, the update method. First, the approach asked participants to estimate their odds of experiencing a life event. Next, each person reassesses their chances after finding out the average person's actual odds of experiencing that event. So like a car accident or being struck by lightning or whatever, they would ask the average person to, what do you think the chances are of this happening to you? The average person would, you know, spit out a number, and they say, well, this is how often it actually happens to people. And then it would see how they change their number. Most of the time, scientists study this effect with negative events, such as receiving a diagnosis for a serious illness or getting a divorce. Interestingly, both of the examples I came up with were also generally negative events. Getting struck by lightning, getting hit by a car. It didn't ask anything about, you know, finding $1 million on the side of the street or whatever. This time, so the question itself sort of tends toward
negativity.
Yeah, I immediately started thinking negative things too.
Right. Well, how many studies have ever been done on finding money in the street? I mean, that's just not something that, one, gets reported a whole lot.
True.
And two, it'd be very hard to study something like that.
This time around, though, study authors removed the negative aspect of the question, choosing to ask more about emotionally neutral scenarios. For example, the odds of the next passing car being the color red. After switching to more neutral topics, participants across the board still showed an optimistic tendency, In light of these findings, the researchers believe the methods used in previous research claiming to prove optimism bias were invalid. Our experiments show that the method commonly used to evidence such optimism is flawed, giving rise to optimistic belief updating, where that word salad is unhelpful. There is, of course, evidence for optimism in certain situations, but that is not to say that humans are generally optimistic. Researchers and policymakers have made careers based on the idea of optimism bias, but it is time to reconsider evidence for this psychological phenomenon. And it sounds like the whole problem here with what they perceived as optimism bias was people being asked negative questions and finding those things were generally unlikely to happen to them. Like you're optimistically hoping you don't get hit by lightning or you don't get hit by a car or whatever, instead of what are the chances the next car that passes by is going to be red? So people were being asked negative questions. They're like, oh, well, that's not likely to happen to me. And it came out sounding optimistic, it sounds like. So there's not a whole lot more to this article, sadly. But it's interesting that when I was, just coming up with examples of this very same thing, I immediately jumped to negative possibilities that could happen to people instead of anything that would have been positive.
I don't know.
Even neutral.
I mean, the headline, I think, of this is misleading. The headline here at studyfinds.org, if you had a similar story, says, study casts doubt on theory that people are naturally optimistic. And I didn't hear that in that story. What I heard was, and tell me if I misheard this, but I heard that people tend to be optimistic about their chances of having something bad happening to them, because who would want to believe that, lightning's going to strike them or they'll be hit by a car tomorrow? So obviously people would tend towards optimism on that, I think. And then they also said that people were also optimistic about the chances of the red car passing
That's what
by.
I'm confused about, too, because I thought that they did say that.
It did indeed say, after switching to more neutral topics, participants across the board still showed an optimistic tendency. So I think
that means that they thought the red car would come by more often than it actually did, because they were optimistic about it.
I don't even know if optimistic would be the right word about a belief in a red car passing by. It's like,
but that's how it would be. That's how it would be determined. I mean, I think they would use that term to describe that prediction. You're optimistic, right? You think the red car is going to come by sooner than it actually does. You're optimistic in that case. It doesn't have to do with positivity. It just has to do with you think you're more right than the average is in that case.
Yeah, the article is definitely misleading. It seems to suggest that humans do, in fact, tend to be optimistic.
I hope that's true.
But the optimism bias that researchers have built careers around and politicians have built careers around may be misleading because the research was done by asking people negative questions.
That could be.
I feel like in real life, I feel like optimistic people are so rare. I normally have these conversations with people and they end up being a pessimist and I'm like the only optimist.
Like, is it really optimism to think, oh, I might find $10 million while walking down this? That's not optimism. That's just unrealism.
Let's continue the discussion here. If you want to weigh in on what do you think? Is optimism more common than pessimism? Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
when a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open here if you want to join us, talking about pessimism versus optimism. And is that the same as being positive or negative? Is pessimism the same thing as negativity? And is optimism the same thing as positivity? I think that might be an important question to dig into as well. With you tonight, by the way, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Aria.
And also, don't forget to join us online anytime you want. You can express yourself with a lot more freedom over on our social media site at social.freetalklive.com. It is a Mastodon platform, which means that we run the server. It's not some big tech social media thing where some corporation is in charge. No, we run the thing, and it's pretty open. As long as you're not there to spam, you can pretty much express yourself over there at social.freetalklive.com. And one of the coolest things about it is, since it's an open source platform, there's a bunch of different apps. So if you don't like one of the apps that you can use on, say, your cell phone, you can try one of 4 or 5 different other ones. There's a nice selection of options out there. So check it out, social.freetalklive.com. Bonnie, was there something you wanted to share about this?
Oh, well, I was just thinking about this topic of optimism today because I was reading a Gnostic text. It's supposed to be Hermes Trismegistus talking to Eclipsius in Egypt, and he says that will is the same thing as purpose, because gods, which you don't have to really believe in gods for this to speak to you necessarily, but gods will things not out of deficiency. So they have everything and are everything. And when something is their will, it comes to being not out of deficiency. It's because it already is. And since people have the spark of the divinity in them, you can have anything you want because you have no deficiency. And that just was really cool to me. I sent it to my friend when I read it.
And somebody who is a pessimist would certainly not believe that. Somebody who is negative would not believe. They would see all their problems. They would focus, in fact, on their problems. And everybody has issues, right? Like we all are imperfect.
They never believe that they can change their life or change what's happening to them with their mindset.
Yeah, that's a victim mentality, and that's not uncommon with people.
I wonder if that's the difference. Then a pessimist sort of views themselves as a passive being in a universe that they can't control, where an optimist or someone who's positive views themselves as an actor in a universe where they can impact their circumstances and the universe around them.
Yeah, seems likely.
That's a great point, and that sort of comes to the issue of a reactor versus somebody who creates, right? So somebody who is living by default is somebody who is just reacting to the things that come to them. There's always going to be something happening in life, and somebody who's this negative personality that doesn't believe that they can, affect change, they just take the hits and they keep on taking them, right, until they die, and then they complain about it the whole time about how terrible life is.
That's so sad. I mean, I know I laughed, but that's so sad.
But there are people like that out there.
That's a waste of a life.
It is. And people who are in the elite, they want to use those people. Those are the useful idiots, the tools for people in the elite who are, familiar with a lot of this esoteric stuff about how to create, how that we all are creators ultimately. And these people want to keep these elites want to keep these other folks in the dark about how powerful of a creature that they are, and then use whatever they can from that person, extract as much obedience, extract as much wealth, extract as much work from that person in order to set themselves up more comfortably in the future. And it's tragic what those people do with their ability to create. They use it to take advantage of those types of people. And, of course, government systems and government indoctrination encourages this.
Well, that's what they do by design.
Yeah.
Is they are the mechanisms that these evil people use in order to create mechanisms that extract wealth and ultimately life from people who are just passive.
Yeah, people will fall victim to those type of things because they just want to be comfortable, because they think that they can't create anything better than just, being comfortable, not having to suffer that badly.
Or if they for a moment had like a spark of a thought of like, ooh, I should strike out on my own, open my own business, or create this thing, that I can do, and I can bring this service or this product or whatever to my community or the world, and they have some sort of a spark of an idea, well, then the system is designed to shut that down as soon as possible. They are not supposed to think outside of the box. Whoa, buddy, you can't just start your own business. You need to get a license first, like we were talking about the bit license. Oh, whoa, you can't create a crypto business here in New York State. You've got to have a $100,000 bit license first. Or
at least.
Or you can't open up a restaurant out of your own home and just serve your neighbors and, give them something good to eat at a cheap price. No, you have to go and get a restaurant certificate from the health authority. You have to install a $200,000 event hood. You have to rent a professional location in the downtown district that we've zoned for restaurants. You can't just start this in your own home, like, on zero budget with the things that you already have and work up from there. No, you have to have $500,000 that you can put into this. So there have been so many people who maybe they did see an opportunity or felt like there was something they wanted to do, but the system just squashed it right out of them and said, nope, sorry, you can't do that. You just need to work for somebody else for your entire life.
I mean, that's assuming the average person can even make it to adulthood before the public school system beats that out of them.
Yeah.
Because that's in large part what the public school system is designed to do, take that spark of creativity and just annihilate it.
Yeah. So no wonder if indeed people are negative or pessimistic, no wonder that they are. Although a quick search here did reveal a study. Now, to be fair, this is several years old. This is from 2013. Statista.com shows that a survey of adult Americans, now I don't have like the survey size here, but a survey of adult Americans shown that of the respondents, 50% said they were an optimist, 43% say they're somewhere in between, and 4% gave the answer pessimist.
Wow.
That's really about what I would expect. Most people want to be positive. Whether or not they're truly optimistic isn't really relevant. They want to be positive people, so they're going to characterize themselves as positive people. And maybe in some small way, that does make them more positive than negative. Most people would say, I'm somewhere in between. And only a very small fraction of the population would be like, no, I'm a pessimist.
I guess you're right. When I said that earlier, I wouldn't say that somebody would say, I am a pessimist. It's more they usually say, I'm a realist. And that usually means something bad is going to happen, or I can see the bad thing that's going to happen. They'll never call themselves a pessimist except like our co-host Johnson.
Well, I would say I'm a realist.
Yeah.
And I'm not pessimistic at all.
I hope that I'm the same way about that as well. If you want to weigh in, you can. The number here is 603-283-6160. But you bring up Johnson. He's a great example of somebody who truly does embrace pessimism and somebody who wears it sort of with a badge of pride, essentially.
Really?
Yeah. I remember years ago he came in with show prep about how being negative or being a pessimist actually supposedly makes you live longer. So, of course,
good. The miserable people.
But then again, there's studies out there that show anything you want them to show. So you can probably, in fact, I'm pretty sure I saw as I was searching here a study saying that if you're an optimistic, you live longer. So it just all depends on what you want the study to find. More coming up here, 603-283-6160. We'll look at the Pope on the way.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A majority of the justices on the U.S. Supreme Court have signaled they would allow abortion providers to pursue a court challenge to a recent and controversial Texas law. That law has virtually ended abortions in the state. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman has that story.
The Supreme Court was asked to decide whether Texas abortion providers and the Department of Justice are allowed to challenge the state's law. It bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and allows citizens to sue anyone involved in the process. After almost 3 hours of arguments, a majority of the justices appeared sympathetic to the case brought by Texas abortion providers. They argued the new law has had a harmful, chilling effect on abortions in the state since it took effect September 1st.
Around 120 world leaders and delegates are attending the COP26 Climate Summit in Scotland with a focus on limiting a global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke on the opening day to outline U.S. commitments to reducing emissions by 2030.
The United States will be able to meet the ambitious target I set in the Leaders Summit in Climate back in April, reducing U.S. emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. We'll demonstrate to the world the United States is not only back at the table, but hopefully leading by the power of our example.
Later in the day, a group of more than 100 world leaders agreed to sign a pledge to end deforestation by the year 2030. The White House Pandemic Response Coordinator says he expects the vaccination program for children aged 5 to 11 against COVID-19 to begin running at full strength next week. Regulatory approval for children's shots using the Pfizer vaccine could be granted as soon as Tuesday, pending a decision from the Centers for Disease Control. It's still unclear how many parents of the roughly 28 million U.S. children in that age range will allow their children to be vaccinated. Initial surveys indicate that about 1 in 3 parents will opt to do so immediately. The Dow Jones and S&P 500 moved into record territory as trading entered a new month on a positive note. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Tesla became a $1 trillion company last week, and its shares rose again Monday, closing the day up around 8.5%. The Dow Jones closed up 0.25%, and the S&P 0.2% to close at fresh record highs. The Nasdaq also ended the day up 0.6%. The Federal Reserve begins its two-day meeting on Tuesday, and Wall Street widely expects the central bank to begin tapering its monthly bond buying program.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
You can bring up anything you want. Don't forget, you can join us online over at freetalklive.com. By the way, thank you to the Freeman, who is a silver amp over at the new Amps program. You can go to our new Patreon over at amps.freetalklive.com. That'll take you right to our Patreon page. And I think we're already up to 40 patrons. 40 amps.
Nice.
So thanks to everybody who's made the switch from our old amp system that I unfortunately had to shut down a couple of weeks ago when we blew up the old freetalklive.com website, and we replaced it with the new Amps Patreon. And you can still join for as little as $5 a month. You can go higher than that. For the Freeman is doing $5. He's doing the silver level amp. So thank you for that. You can go to amps.freetalklive.com to learn more about some of the perks that you get as Free Talk Live supporter over at amps.freetalklive.com. Thomas Parisi on the line with us here, calling in from our very own Keene. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, hi guys, and this is unsolicited, but I want to make sure that tomorrow we have a mayoral race here in Keene, and I want to make sure that people go out there to vote for Aria for mayor.
I was telling Aria earlier tonight I plan to write her in because she was unfortunately eliminated from the lineup technically in the primary that happened a month ago, but that doesn't mean you can't write in somebody, and I do intend to write in Aria.
I'm also going to write in Aria, and I speculated yesterday on the air that the Republicans just went and voted for that other guy, I forget his name, Zukowski.
George Hansel.
No, Zukowski, the other one.
The alleged stalker.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's easy to beat.
I don't think that's it at all. I think that Hansel just, he's the incumbent. He's the one everyone knows. Zukowski is a complete unknown that no one knows anything about. And out of the few people who did vote in the primary, because there were fewer than 1,000 votes, which is a quarter of what I got when I ran for sheriff just in the primary alone. So it was a ridiculously low turnout. The ones who
wait. That's a quarter of what you got in the city of Keene, or a quarter of what you got in the whole county?
In the whole county, to be fair.
Okay.
But Keene is the largest
oranges.
town in the county as well, by a fairly
Keene's
large margin.
I don't know, 17,000 registered voters or something. There's a high percentage of the population in Keene that is actually registered to vote.
Yeah, but it was still a very, very low turnout, and I have no doubt that at this particular primary, it was the people who were more connected, more politically aware.
Always. Those are always the people that vote in primaries.
I don't know about the last primary, but it certainly appears to be the case in
municipal
the odd-year
primaries.
primaries.
Yes, municipal primaries especially so.
So they knew who I was, and they were like, no, anyone else. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't think it's unfortunate that I got eliminated. I mean, it kind of sucks, but still, just by filing that $5 and that stupid sheet of paper, I managed to cost the city of Keene between $12,000 and $20,000. So I'm totally happy whatever the result of this is going to be.
Yeah, basically you caused the primary because their rules are so stupid.
Single-handedly.
Like they could just change the system and say, all right, no more primary, and put 3 candidates on the ballot for mayor. But no, the primary has to happen according to the stupid system because they need to have 2 candidates on the ballot for mayor.
Yeah, and I mean, our candidates that are there now, one of them is, and I can say this on my own personal accord, is just my brother's jock friend, and he's basically a Chad, and he's, he is about what he's about. All he tries to pump out to people is oh, he's going to revitalize the community, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, one of my viewers for my jail paper thing sent me in a thing where this guy, and I'm sure, Aria, you screen your Facebook friends. This guy is friends, George Hansel, was a convicted sex offender. That was, and it's kind of like you don't even screen your friends that
I don't know. I mean,
how could you know that if they didn't have it on their profile, though?
Yeah, if you're a politician, I mean, these guys want to be friends with everybody, and I doubt he is looking at who is sending a friend request. So it's probably, I mean, I'm the first person to, think the worst of a politician, but I just suspect that he just accepts anybody who sends him a request.
I don't accept just anyone because, you just can't do that. But I mean, I've got something like 1,100 friends on Facebook. I know maybe 30 of them, and the rest of them are either friends of friends or people who sent me friends requests when I ran for sheriff.
Adam, then?
No, I don't know. No, I mean, any one of them. I'm sure some of them are sex offenders.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot worse that you can say about somebody, though. Here's one question I have.
I'm not going to be careful about who I add on social media, man. If somebody wants to judge me over who my Facebook friends are, that tells me that I shouldn't be Facebook friends with that particular person.
Or real friends.
That's true. You have a point there.
Here's a question I have, though. Bonnie and I, we've been driving around, and we've been seeing these signs for the current mayor, who, as you mentioned, his name's George Hansel. He's a Republican, which is unusual for Keene for a Republican to win anything. But he somehow got elected because mayor and city council is a what they call nonpartisan, right? So there's no party letter next to the person's name when you vote. But the signs say, what are they, Bonnie?
Make Keene spend like Washington. George Hansel. That's it. No other explanation, and when I Google it, I see nothing.
And I don't understand what that means, because to me that sounds like a bad thing.
Bad.
Why would you, like, Keene's bad, but
has like
Washington's
a picture of
worse.
like clouds in the sky or something like that on it, and it's like just make Keene spend
I thought it had
like
a picture
Washington.
of like one of the Washington monuments or something, like one of the buildings.
Yeah, it has something that just looks like happy-go-lucky. It doesn't look like a bad thing.
Does he mean he wants Keene to have a military that drops bombs on brown people in
It doesn't make any sense. Do you, Thomas? Do you have any sort of insight on what that might mean?
That sounds to me, from just a layman, it sounds like we should be wasting money.
Yeah, it almost.
Unfortunately gotten into the circumstance where we either have like a weirdo guy or we have a guy that's so insane that he's putting up things that make absolutely no sense.
Yeah. Right. That's how bad it really is.
I loved his Sentinel, the thing that he sent to the Sentinel where he spent like a half a page describing his dream to have a radio show and how people could call in and sing.
You're talking about the current
stuff.
mayor or the other guy?
Zukowski, the crazy one who rambles incoherently.
The alleged stalker.
Yeah.
Now,
dude, he spends like at least a half a page describing this theoretical radio show where people can call in and play instruments and sing over the air and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, have you ever done radio?
He also said, I only read like the first page. You actually read the whole thing.
I did.
It was like 27 pages long. He also says he considers the current mayor to be like his son, like that he's his daddy. Or
they have a
something
father-son relationship where he is the father and the mayor is the son.
Yeah, and then he like shames his son for being a bad boy.
And it's kind of sad that I lost to that guy. That guy, I lost
by
him.
like 30
That's
30
why I
votes.
think it's fake. I have no reason to think that.
No, I totally get it. People want a presidential candidate.
And he's old.
So they went for the babbling old man who's spewing incoherent nonsense because he reminded them of our president.
Hey, it is Keene.
Well,
Thomas,
thank you
anything
guys
else?
for having me on the show. I wanted to say one last thing. I just got hit with another restraining order, so I will let you guys know. I have 5 court cases this week. So allegedly, just like that crazy guy that's running for mayor, my one is being mean to sex offenders. But I'm going to let you guys know, and I did violate my gag order, but it wasn't successful to have me arrested. So I'm still hanging in there. But I appreciate you all doing there. And tomorrow I will be voting for somebody. It won't be George Hansel.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for your support, Tom.
I appreciate it, Thomas, and thanks for the call tonight. I don't understand this sign about make Keene spend like Washington. I said to Bonnie earlier today, is this an attack sign? Is this saying that Hansel is a big spender and that...
I just don't think so, because it has like a nice picture in the background and the exact words are make Keene spend like Washington, George Hansel. So wouldn't that just defeat the purpose? It'd be an advertisement for him in a way.
If it was an attack sign, who would have funded this? It wasn't Zukowski.
And it's not very well
I have better
thought out.
things to do with my time.
But why would Hansel say, a supposed Republican, a supposed fiscal conservative, why would he liken what his vision for Keene is to Washington, D.C. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Why even bother? He got like 90% of the votes in the primary.
Why bother putting signs out at all?
Yeah. I mean, dude, you have this in the bag. Unless you do something monumentally stupid, there's no way you can lose this tomorrow. And I say this as somebody who ran against you. Yeah. You've won. There's no point in having the election at this point.
There's no chance the alleged stalker is going to beat you. And I haven't seen a single sign for the alleged stalker either. Right? There's all kinds of
he said he wasn't going to bother with signs and all
because he knows he's going to lose.
Right.
Right? If we'd only had 36 votes, you'd have beat the alleged stalker, and you'd be in the generals. That's literally all that it takes to win here in Keene. Is a few dozen people. More coming up.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
number for you if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And Aria, you checked the actual numbers. I was off by about a dozen votes, apparently.
Yeah, but it was still further away than I thought it was. I thought it was more like 48 to 35 or something.
I said it was 3 dozen votes between you and the guy that made it through the primary for mayor here, and it was actually like 23, 24.
Yeah, I don't remember now.
Yeah, so basically 2 dozen. So if we had, a little more than 2 dozen activists that were here and they were willing to vote, 'cause some of the people who move they don't want to vote. Because they're anti-voting or whatever, like, the captain.
I just don't understand that mentality, though.
He's in Walpole.
But if he lived in Keene, he still wouldn't vote because he's against voting. I don't know. It's this mentality that somehow the voting thing is going to empower the system or something. It's a ridiculous viewpoint because
But other people are going to vote.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if Joe Biden got 1 vote or 1 million, he was going to become president either way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So not voting doesn't...
It doesn't stop them.
It does nothing.
There have actually been towns in which no one voted. That has actually happened. And you'd think like, oh, that's it. These people believe the government's just going to implode upon itself if no one votes. No, they have systems to deal with this.
What happened?
If no one votes, they just draw straws. Like they literally, they've come up with this, right? Like somebody out there in a legislature said, hey, what if no one votes? Oh, well, we'll make them flip a coin or we'll make them draw straws or, something like that. Of course, in most places, people do vote because at the bare minimum, you can expect the politicians to vote for themselves.
Sure.
At the bare minimum, the government agents usually come out.
That's what I was thinking when the
vote.
The government agents vote.
But every now and then there's some freak election where the guy that, was running for office just didn't make it to the polls and no one else did either. And guess what? The government keeps running because as long as you keep paying them, they're going to keep doing what they do.
Yeah, I get not paying them.
Yeah.
I don't get not voting, though.
Yeah, totally with you on that. So, Bonnie, you've got a story from Foundation for Economic Education tonight. What do you want to share?
It's called What Pope Francis Gets Wrong About Corporate Greed, Global Hunger, and Inflation.
I
imagine a lot.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what the Pope, who oversees the Vatican, which is one of the wealthiest cities, I think probably the wealthiest city in the world.
By square miles?
Yeah. Has to say about
greed.
Mm-hmm.
With such a massive platform, the Pope has an obligation to better inform himself before wading into economic affairs. As the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis is an esteemed faith leader and global religious icon. But an expert in one field doesn't make an expert in another, and the Pope's understanding of economics leaves a lot to be desired if his latest remarks are anything to go by. Pope Francis recently made a statement on World Food Day that in effect blamed markets and capitalism for the persistence of world hunger.
Blamed markets for the persistence
and capitalism.
Of world hunger. Yeah, the opposite's true. Markets are the reason why we have surpluses. If there's people who are hungry, I would look no further than their government and see why it is that they're stopping people from 1, opening businesses, or 2, being able to accept food donations. Because in, relatively free areas of the world, we literally throw away a ton of food, every day.
Yeah.
Quote, this is the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
The fight against hunger demands we overcome the cold logic of the market, which is greedily focused on mere economic profit and the reduction of food to a commodity, and strengthening the logic of solidarity, he tweeted. We must
Sounds
adapt.
Like a bunch of buzzwords.
Yeah. We must, but it's true that the market, not that it has a mind of its own, but it turns, food into a commodity and focuses on
food is
economic
always a commodity.
Yeah, what else is
it? It is. And the market favoring economic profit, he's just saying those things as if they're bad, but they are true and good.
Yeah, he's pandering to the idea that money is the root of all evil, which, of course, is a typical thing that people say without really understanding.
I don't want to hear that from the Pope, though, because the Pope is obscenely rich.
Yeah, right.
Covered in jewels and...
Oh, no, it's not evil when I do it. But the reality, of course, is that money's just a tool, and that tool can be used for good, and it can be used for bad, and it really just depends on in whose hands is the money. And of course, well, the government has historically created money, and they have an evil form of money that is debased constantly by their endless printing of it.
And from
now,
what I can tell, the Catholic Church has used their wealth to transport child sex offenders across the world and keep them hidden from governments and the eyes of the masses. So again
and again.
Yeah, the Pope is not someone who I want lecturing me on morality.
Nope. He also tweets, "We must adapt our socioeconomic models so that they have a human face, because many models have lost it." The Pope continued, "Thinking about these situations, in God's name, I want to ask the big food corporations to stop imposing monopolistic production and distribution structures that inflate prices and end up withholding bread from the hungry."
I'll agree with him to an extent, like the practices of Monsanto and all of these other companies like Nabisco and whoever their parent company is. Yeah, sure, they do some very evil things that are enabled by governments throughout the world.
Right. Well, Monsanto, with its Terminator seeds that they, restrict people from making a second generation of plants without having to come back and buy new seeds, this is all made possible by patents.
Yes, and governments being willing to,
That's a government.
shoot farmers for not upholding that patent.
Yeah. So, I mean, governments create corporations, they empower corporations. Corporations are a creation of the state. The state itself is a corporation, so we shouldn't be surprised when corporations act in the way that governments incentivize them to.
Absolutely not.
In Pope Francis's telling, the cold logic of the market is the main barrier to eliminating world hunger, but this argument betrays a woeful misunderstanding of how markets operate and how past achievements in reducing global poverty have been achieved. Free markets are arguably the greatest tool to reduce poverty and create widely shared abundance that mankind has yet discovered.
Yeah, all you have to do is look no further than all of the failed experiments with socialism and communism that the world has attempted in the last 100 or so years. Look at Russian communism. Look at the current situation in North Korea, where they're still hungry today. They were, eating grass soup.
Ian,
in the 1990s.
At least they didn't have a gender pay gap.
Well, I mean, we don't even have to look at the failures of socialism, right? If you want to make money, you're going to find the cheapest labor that you can. And that may be in China, where you can pay someone 5 cents an hour or whatever. But still, by doing that, they take that 5 cents an hour, which is more they were making before, and they use that to buy food. And it lifts people out of poverty.
Yeah.
If you want to, keep the poor and have this system of hierarchy where you're oppressing people, you don't liquidate the poor. And the free market system, by design, it liquidates the class that is the poor and lifts everyone up to where the poor in the United States, thanks to what is not even a free market, have 60-inch televisions and smartphones. Yeah. That's our poor, and it's because of free market trades.
Chelsea Follett from Human Progress Managing Editor says, "No country has ever become rich through charitable efforts alone. Consider India, where the Catholic Church has done much admirable..."
Hold on, he says this from the Vatican?
No, that was somebody else.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's somebody from Human Progress Managing Editor. She says, "Consider India, where the Catholic Church has done much admirable humanitarian work. In the 1970s, while Mother Teresa was helping to tend to that country's poor, they were certainly in dire need, as over 67% of India's children were underweight due to a lack of food. After India moved towards freer markets in the early 1990s, the country's poverty rate plummeted, and the share of its children classified as underweight rapidly shrank, falling to around 30% in the most recent figures." So too,
and that's largely because, hello, this is Eric from AT&T, and those people getting jobs that pay them better than what they would otherwise be doing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I always think it's at least ignorant when I hear people say, like, "Oh, you don't want to eat cashews because underpaid people pick those cashews." I'm like, well, do you hate those people? They are voluntarily, choosing to work this job, and you want to starve them from their job?
These are people who don't understand economics at all. They think, oh, well, because I make $15 an hour, the person in this other country should also make $15 an hour. And if they don't, then they're quote-unquote underpaid. Even though what you pointed out, Arya, is that they took that job because it paid them more than whatever it was they were doing to eke out some crappy living on some, unairable plot of land wherever they were from.
and they probably will make $15 an hour eventually, but they have to start at $1 a day or whatever like that, and their economy has to grow to where they can make $15 a day.
Yeah, and you can't just fake it. You can't just, pass a law that says everybody has to make $15 an hour because, well, we know what happens when that happens. Then you get all kinds of people being fired, and you get lower product quality, and I wish we had more time to talk about this, but we'll post that link for you on our social media site over at social.freetalklive.com. We'll see you tomorrow night, Free Talk Live. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. A majority of the justices on the U.S. Supreme Court have signaled they would allow abortion providers to pursue a court challenge to a recent and controversial Texas law. That law has virtually ended abortions in the state. FSN's U.S. correspondent Rachel Silverman has that story.
The Supreme Court was asked to decide whether Texas abortion providers and the Department of Justice are allowed to challenge the state's law. It bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy and allows citizens to sue anyone involved in the process. After almost 3 hours of arguments, a majority of the justices appeared sympathetic to the case brought by Texas abortion providers. They argued the new law has had a harmful, chilling effect on abortions in the state since it took effect September 1st.
Around 120 world leaders and delegates are attending the COP26 Climate Summit in Scotland with a focus on limiting a global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke on the opening day to outline U.S. commitments to reducing emissions by 2030.
The United States will be able to meet the ambitious target I set in the Leaders Summit in Climate back in April, reducing U.S. emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. We'll demonstrate to the world the United States is not only back at the table, but hopefully leading by the power of our example.
Later in the day, a group of more than 100 world leaders agreed to sign a pledge to end deforestation by the year 2030. The White House Pandemic Response Coordinator says he expects the vaccination program for children aged 5 to 11 against COVID-19 to begin running at full strength next week. Regulatory approval for children's shots using the Pfizer vaccine could be granted as soon as Tuesday, pending a decision from the Centers for Disease Control.